This is the only handstand tutorial you'll ever need. In today's video, I'm going to teach you exactly how you can unlock your first handstand in a matter of weeks, covering things like how to warm up, common mistakes that I see people make, a conceptual understanding of the movement, form cues, how to train the movement, and more. But before I get into all that, I want to talk about something that is very important, and that is your mentality going into learning the skill. Your mentality will determine how fast you progress. I have seen people unlock the skill in 2 weeks, and I have seen people unlock the skill in 6 months. And the biggest difference between these two people is that one person put handstand on a pedestal. They told themselves it was a very difficult skill that will take a long time. They were afraid to try new things. They were afraid to kick up and fail. And because of these things, it took them 6 months to learn. And then there's another guy who went into it with an I can do it mentality, with a mentality of this is an easy skill that I can get in a short period of time. They were not afraid to kick up. They did their sets against the wall. They took bad days on the head and kept moving, and they unlocked the skill in 2 weeks, okay? If you have this limiting belief that handstand is a difficult skill, it will take you a long time, and if you believe you can do it in 2 weeks, you will do it in 2 weeks. Before I get into how to warm up for the skill, I wanted to cover a few basic items that you could purchase but don't necessarily need to learn the skill. The handstand is a skill that you can learn entirely from home with zero equipment, but there are a few things that I think are very helpful with warming up and with training the skill. The first item is parallettes. These are used to balance on, and some people prefer these over balancing on the floor because it's easier on the wrists and because you can make stronger corrections in the backward direction. I'm gonna get into this a little bit later in the video, but if you guys wanna pick these up from Amazon, they're $30 to $40, and honestly, I would recommend these because they've been very useful in my own training. The second item that I would recommend getting is a band, a resistance band. You can get a 5-pack of these on Amazon for around $25, and they are very useful in warming up your shoulders and rotator cuffs before any training. And the third and least necessary item, but something that I use a lot, is liquid chalk. You can also get dry chalk. It essentially, you put it on your hands and it just helps with grip in the handstand and other advanced skills. Okay, next I'm gonna cover warm-up. Warming up for skills in calisthenics is very important because if your joints and ligaments are cold and you go into skills like the handstand, which can sometimes be intense on your wrists and shoulder joints, you can get injured very easily. And injuries are the #1 killer of progress in calisthenics. The first exercise I like to do when warming up for the handstand is shoulder dislocates with a band. So this warms up your shoulder joints very nicely. Essentially, this warm-up gets more difficult the closer together your hands are. So when you're just starting out, you can go to the very ends of the band to make it the most easy. And then what you're gonna wanna do is either sit or stand, hold the band in front of you like this, and then bring your hands behind your shoulders and back. And this is essentially warming up your shoulder joints, opening your shoulders. You can go side to side if you wanna feel that stretch in your lats and in your rotator cuff. And the important thing with doing this warm-up is that you keep a posterior pelvic tilt. So you don't wanna be doing an exercise like this, where you're pushing your butt out and there's a roundness to your lower back, because this is essentially cheating the skill. It'll become way easier. What you wanna do is flex your abs, have a posterior pelvic tilt, and then do this warm up like this. So that's warm up #1. The next few exercises are going to be for the wrists. The wrists are the most used part of your body in handstands, so they are also the most important to warm up. For the wrist warm up, you're going to get on your knees on the ground like this, and there's gonna be 3 variations of wrist warm ups that you're gonna do. The first is plant your hands on the ground like you're in a handstand, and then you're going to want to lightly do some circles like this. So the more forward you come, the more you'll feel that stretch in your wrists. You're gonna do gentle moving circles, and it's important with these exercises to not do static stretches. So don't just hold your wrists like that. That's actually worse than doing no warm-up, and it can lead to more injuries. So do some light circles like this. Do that for maybe 20 to 30 seconds, and then you can move on to putting the top of your hand on the ground like this and doing the same thing again, circles. And in this case, the further back you come, the more you'll feel that stretch in the front part of your forearm. So you can do those again, 20 to 30 seconds. And then the very last one is like the first one, except reversed. And then you're gonna do the same thing. Again, when you come back, you'll feel that stretch. And go in circles, and then do that for 20 to 30 seconds. And at the very end, I also just like doing some wrist circles kind of like this. Just get that last warm up. And then that's essentially it for warm ups for the handstand. So next, I'm gonna talk conceptually about the handstand. Understanding the handstand on a conceptual level is very important for learning the skill, because without it, you are lost. You are simply kicking up, trying to balance, you don't know what your body's doing, and you don't know what your body is supposed to be doing in the movement. The end goal with the handstand is to cleanly kick up into a pencil-like straight shape with straight legs and open shoulders, and then make small adjustments with your wrist strength using your fingertips and palm to maintain balance in this straight line. So that is the end goal. Of course, when you're starting your handstand journey, your form is not going to look like this. Most likely your shoulders won't be all the way open. Instead of being like this, they're going to be a little closed. Your legs might come over and you'll be a little bananaed, and that's okay. Your form will be built as you learn the skill and as you get stronger in that open position. But you should be aiming for this pencil-like shape, and there are a few things you can do to achieve a form like this, which I will discuss later. So how do you actually adjust with your wrists? It seems like a lot of people lack the understanding of how to use your hands to actually balance in a handstand when they begin. So I like to compare it to standing on your feet. When you are standing on your feet and you are trying to balance and you start leaning forward, if I'm standing like this, in order to go in this direction, you put weight in the front of your toes and it brings you back. And if you were to be falling back and you wanted to come forward, you would put weight in your heels and that would bring you forward. And your toes might even lift off the ground when you do this. The exact same thing applies to handstands. In the handstand, when you feel like you are falling over or forward, you are going to push yourself back with your fingertips by pushing your fingers into the ground, and this will bring your body backwards. And when you are falling backwards, you're going to put all the weight of your body into your palms. And in this case, if you're doing a big correction to make yourself come forward, your fingers might even lift off the ground because there's so much weight in your palms that your fingers lift up. You can also think of your wrists as a gas and a brake pedal. If you are falling forward, you want to stop this motion. So your fingertips are the brakes. You push into the ground to brake and bring yourself back. And if you're falling backwards and you want to go forward, your palms are your gas pedal. So you put all the weight in your palms and it brings you forward. Now, the problem a lot of people have when starting the handstand is that pushing yourself backwards with your fingertips, that can be done, that's easy. But sometimes it feels impossible when you're falling backwards to bring yourself forwards by putting weight in your palms, because putting your weight in your palms is simply shifting your center of mass, but you're not actually pushing anything, right? Your fingers can push, but your palms cannot. And that's why some people prefer parallettes, because with parallettes, you are making the same adjustments. Instead of pushing into the ground with your fingertips, you are pushing into the parallettes with the front of your hand. And instead of putting weight in your palms, you are simply pushing backwards into the parallette with your palm. So to go backwards, you are pushing into the parallette with the front of your hand, and to go forward, you are putting weight backwards into the parallette. With the parallettes, you have a much stronger ability to stop yourself from going backwards than you do on the ground. So that's why some people prefer parallettes over hand balancing. So to give you an example of how to adjust, you can take a look at my wrists when I'm in an actual handstand. So I'll do a little demonstration here and you guys can see what my wrists are actually doing on the ground to keep myself balanced. And you're gonna notice that since I'm in a straight line and I'm only using my wrists to balance, the forward and backwards motion is done by my fingertips and my palms, and they're gonna see microscopic little movements like this. So when I kick up and I balance, you can see my hands working to keep my center of mass directly above my wrists. And that's what you want to be doing in the handstand to keep yourself balanced. So real quick, I want to talk about my own experience with the handstand and why it took me way too long to get. And it's very simple. I was ego training. Okay, I didn't really know any better because no one was here to tell me this like I'm telling you face to face. But ego training is the #1 reason why it takes people so long to get the handstand. The enjoyable thing in the handstand is kick-ups. Okay, those are fun. You kick up, you get that thrill, that rush of maybe getting a hold, and it's enjoyable, right? What's not enjoyable is doing this shit against the wall, okay? It sucks. You have to do it, you take your legs off, you fall into the wall over and over. You know that you won't fall, so there's no thrill, but this work is what will get you the handstand, okay? If you waste your time kicking up over and over and you don't have a foundation of good form and correctional ability, you will not unlock the skill. The handstand is about building volume, okay? You wanna build volume in the handstand with good form. If you're kicking up and falling, at most, you're gonna get 1 second of volume per set in the handstand, maybe 1 to 2 seconds if you get a lucky good hold. Against the wall, you can build up 10 to 20 seconds per set, and this volume will allow your brain to adapt to the movement, make the necessary changes, and you will get the skill 20 times faster because you have 20 times more volume per workout. So like I said, if you want to throw in some kick-ups at the end, if you want to learn how to bail, there's no problem with that, right? You want to have some fun with your training, but be disciplined. use the wall like I've taught you, and you will get this handstand in a matter of weeks. In fact, I guarantee that some of you watching will get this skill in under a week. You will get your first hold in under a week if you train like this. Okay, so now that you know how to adjust in the handstand with your wrists, I'm gonna talk more about good form in the handstand, as well as some of the common mistakes I see people make when they start their training. So I'm gonna demonstrate some of these form things against the wall. The first is going to be how wide your hands are. So this is pretty basic, just shoulder width apart. Just do kind of what feels right. You don't wanna go super narrow because then you're gonna tip side to side and your shoulders won't be able to open as much. And you don't wanna go super wide as well because it's harder to adjust with your fingers. So shoulder width apart. And so the first common mistake I see people make is they kick up into the handstand and they look backwards with their face. At all times on the handstand, including while you're kicking up and when you're in it, you should be looking in between your hands, okay? The space in between your hands is where you should be looking at all times. The second most common mistake I see people make is not pushing into the ground. When you're in the handstand, you want to be open in your shoulders. And to do this, you want to push into the ground so that your shoulders are open all the way. And I see a lot of people not do this, which is what causes what you may know as banana back form. So banana back form occurs when you kick up and you're not all the way in, so you're kind of like this. And then your shoulders aren't open and your lower back bends. And what you want to do to correct this is push into the ground. Open your shoulders up, and then everything else will correct with it. So the third common mistake that I see people make is they'll kick up into a handstand and their butt will hit the wall before their hands. And what this is caused by is your lower back essentially doing this. Okay, so your butt's poking out, you have a rounded lower back, and this is very bad form. In the handstand, you want your core to be in a neutral position. You don't want it to be like this, and you want it to be rather more pelvically tilted in a neutral position. A bad kick up that I see people do is they'll kick up and their butt will hit the wall like this, okay? And then they'll try to come off, but their lower back is bent like this, and to fix this, you need to essentially squeeze your core slightly. You're going to get in a neutral position, which is then much easier to hold and causes your form to actually be straight. So the fourth and last mistake that I see people make a lot is not keeping their legs straight or together. So a lot of people will have their legs kind of swaying around doing their own thing and they're not aware of where their legs are in the handstand. And this is bad because if your legs are over you or behind you, and this is bad because if your legs are swaying around or they go in front of you or behind you, you're going to lose balance, and there's nothing your wrists can do to save such a big imbalance. So you want to keep your legs together and straight. And to do this, what you can do is essentially lightly flex your legs, so your quads lightly flexed. Keep your legs together and point your toes, most importantly. Pointed toes will keep your legs very straight. So when you kick up, you want to look between your hands, push into the ground, lightly squeeze your legs, point your toes, and then you will hold a perfectly clean handstand. Okay, so now that we understand the form in the handstand and all these common mistakes that a lot of people make and how to correct them, it is now time to talk about how to actually train for the handstand. Now, by this point, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed, right? This is a lot of information, but I promise you, it is much simpler than you think. My goal here is to point out all the mistakes that you will make at some point so that you have something to reference to. But the handstand is one of those skills where if you train it on the daily, and you pay attention to your form, and very importantly, you record your sets so that you see your form from the side, you can fix all these things in one day. It's not that much, it just requires some thinking each set and some honest reflection on your form. The key to training the handstand, okay, this is very important. The key to training the handstand and making real progress is to use the wall for most of your training, okay? My advice is only use the wall until you can get a 10 to 15 second clean hold against the wall. And so what I mean by 10 to 15 second hold is you can kick up against the wall, take one leg off, match it with the other, and then hold this for 10 to 15 seconds on command. Okay? When you can do this, you have learned the handstand. Okay, that's it. You basically have the handstand. Then all you need to do is practice the kick up, okay, which we will get into later. But at the beginning of your training, aside from if you want to throw in some attempts at the end, right, some kick ups, you want to learn how to bail, that's fine. But 80 to 90% of your training should be against the wall. And I'm going to show you exactly how your sets should look and what you should be aiming to do right now. So against the wall, you're going to start off like this. You're going to take your hand, place it against the wall, put your other hand behind it, and that's how far away from the wall your hand should be, okay? Approximately. If you feel like it's too far or too close, you can adjust, but this is a very good general understanding of how far from the wall your hand should be. What you're gonna then do is you're going to kick up into the wall, your body's gonna hit the wall, and you're going to try to straighten your body by pushing into the ground, pointing your toes, and then you're going to remove one leg from the wall and then try to match it with the other leg and hold that position. What will most likely happen in most of your sets is you're gonna feel this weird force that just seems to throw you into the wall over and over again, okay? You're gonna try and take your foot away and you're just gonna keep going into the wall. And sometimes you might also fall backwards, right? And I'm gonna show you some things that can help you prevent this from happening. The first thing to stop this from happening is to make sure that your shoulders are stacked over your wrists, right? As you're getting ready to kick up and while you're kicked up, your shoulders should always be above your wrists. If you are kicking up and your shoulders are back behind you like this, and then you do like this, you either won't be able to kick up or you will, and you'll kind of swing into the wall, and that's also bad. This is a good habit to build for when you're doing freestanding handstands, because if your shoulders aren't stacked over your wrists, you will fall every single time. So that's number one. Now, as I said before, one of the common issues people have is rounding their lower back and poking their butt out. And this is another reason why people can't get off the wall. They take one leg off, they take the other, and they fall into it, because what's happening is their butt is like this into the wall. So their center of mass is over their wrists, and no matter what they do, they just keep falling into the wall, right? To fix this, like I said before, tense your core slightly, squeeze your butt, and you will already feel that your center of mass is going backwards, and it will be much easier to hold the handstand. Now at the same time, you want to lightly squeeze your legs, point your toes so that you have that pencil-like shape, and you want your shoulders to be open. So at first it may seem hard, right? You're most likely lacking that shoulder strength to be perfectly open, but the important thing is that you have the intention of being open every single set. That when you kick up, you don't slack and just kind of let your shoulders sink like this and try and throw your legs off and hold quick, right? This is about discipline. If you want the handstand, you need to train against the wall, you need to record your sets, and you need to ensure that you're doing the things that matter and not the things that don't. So another common thing that could happen against the wall is you kick up and you keep falling backwards, right? And it may feel impossible to correct forward, right? You want to bring yourself forward with your palms. It may feel impossible, and that's understandable because it is a much weaker correction than with your fingertips. So the second way to correct in the handstand is essentially using your shoulders. Now, your shoulders are much less accurate and they make much bigger corrections. So they should only be used as a last resort. But I'm going to show you now how you can make a big correction into the wall in the case that you're falling backwards. And this can be very useful, especially when you're training freestanding, because this is a correction that you will need. So you're going to kick up, and if you are falling backwards, what you can do to make a big correction forward is you can essentially bend your arms, put the weight in your palms, and you will fall forward. So like this, and then bend your arms, lift your fingers off the ground, put all the weight in your palms, and you will fall into the wall. Okay, so in summary, against the wall, the goal is to be in a pencil-like straight line and then take one leg off and then the other and hold for 10 to 15 seconds. While you're doing this, you're going to be using your fingertips to push into the ground to go backwards, putting weight in your palms to go forwards. You're going to want to be pushed into the ground to open your shoulders. You're going to want to point your toes and squeeze your quads to keep your legs straight. And you're going to want to slightly tense your core and your butt to keep your pelvis in a neutral position so that you can then hold the handstand for 10 to 15 seconds, no problem. Okay, so now you've made it to the final step of learning the handstand, and that is going to be the kick up and the freestanding hold. Now, by this point, you should already be able to do a 10 to 15 second hold against the wall, so you understand the form and you understand everything that goes into a handstand. Now, the only thing left is to kick up into it and hold it. So the first and most important thing with learning how to kick up is understanding how to bail safely. Bailing occurs when you overshoot the handstand, so you have to twist and land on your feet in order to not injure yourself. So I'm going to demonstrate and then I'm going to talk about it. So it's very simple. You kick up, you overshoot, you twist, and you land on your feet like that. So I'll do it again. Kick up, overshoot, and you twist and land on your feet. Now, everyone kind of bails differently, so I'm not going to tell you what arm to twist and what arm to keep on the ground. The basic idea is that you are twisting your body in one direction, one arm is staying on the ground, the other is coming off, and you are landing on your feet. What you do not want to do, okay, under any circumstance, and this is a big mistake that I forgot to mention earlier, is walk on your hands to save yourself. Okay, this is a terrible habit. I see so many people do this, and it's bad because it builds bad habits. For example, if you're on P-bars at a park and you start fucking walking and then you eat shit, that's not good, okay? You wanna have a clean handstand in one position, no walking, and you wanna be able to hold that on command, okay? So do not walk, instead bail, okay? Don't roll, don't put a pillow, don't do any of that. Simply kick up, and if you overshoot, twist your body and land on your feet. Now, there's gonna be a lot of you that are scared to do this, and the unfortunate truth is that it will take you longer to do the handstand because you are afraid. Okay, the people that are not afraid learn how to bail literally on their third attempt, first to third attempt. I've seen a guy, I said, hey, twist your body and land on your feet, bail perfectly fine the first try. And then I see some people that are afraid of doing this and it takes them longer to understand this. Okay, so now with actually kicking up into the handstand, a lot of these things I'm gonna tell you right now are very similar as the things I mentioned against the wall, but they also apply here even more so than against the wall because there is no wall to save you. You can't simply kick up with bad form into the wall and then correct your form once you're there. You have to actually do all these things as you're kicking up so that you can hold the handstand. So the first is going to be when you're getting ready to kick up, you want to keep your shoulders over your wrists and maintain them there, okay? You don't want to start back like this and then kind of like slide into the jump. Keep your shoulders above your wrists so that when you kick up, your shoulders stay in the same position and it's simply your legs and your hips that go over your wrists and then stay there like this. Now, again, you're going to want to push into the ground and stay pushed into the ground to stay open. As your legs swing over you and your hips swing over you, you essentially want to push into the ground with your fingers so that when they're coming over, they get slowed down and they stop right above your wrists. Once you are there, you should be pointing your toes, lightly squeezing your legs, and keeping your core in a neutral position. So it should look something like this from the side. You kick, point your toes, and then use your wrists to adjust. Again, if your legs are doing whatever they want and they're kind of flying around, your wrists won't be able to adjust for that. You're going to fall one way or the other and there's nothing you can do about it. So you want your body to be in a straight line so that your wrists are doing the small corrections that keep you there. Now, like I said before, you want a 10 to 15 second hold against the wall, but you can also start throwing these freestanding attempts in while you're doing that. Just make it a very small part until you have an actual good hold against the wall. Once you have a good hold against the wall, you can do this for most of your workout, right? But you should still incorporate some wall holds into your training to keep that connection fresh and to continue building volume in the skill. Just because you got one 10 to 15 second hold doesn't mean you're perfect yet, right? So that's it for the freestanding portion. As for how often you should train this skill, this is what I would say. Training the skill for 20 to 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week is much better than training for 1 hour, 3 days a week. And this is because every time that you sleep, your brain makes connections overnight that then go into the next day. So you would rather train more frequently per week to build more connections rather than only training a few days a week more, right? The handstand is not a strength skill, so you don't really need to recover from it as much as from anything else. However, if you do feel pain in your wrist that is sharp, right, not dull, sharp, then you should stop training and take rest until it goes away. You may feel some dull pain or soreness in your wrists from handstands at the beginning, but this is okay to train through as long as you listen to your body. So train this 6 to 7 times a week and you will make incredible progress. Stay against the wall until you can hold for 10 to 15 seconds and then work on your freestanding kickups. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If this helped you out, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment what type of tutorial you guys would like to see next so that I can make it for you. If you think that there's a friend out there that might find use from this video, then you can share it to them as well. And if you guys want to check out my Instagram where I post a lot more content, that will be linked below as well. And lastly, if you are serious about calisthenics and you want to take your training to the next level and you would like personalized one-on-one help, I do offer coaching to people that are serious about it and that are ready to make a real investment in themselves and their training long term. If you guys are interested in that, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram and I'll send you more details. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.